Good morning. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Today I want to talk to you about two allegations about use of force with our police department, St. Pete Police Department. This is not a good day for us. We just want to make sure that we tell our citizens that this is how our police department does not work. And the allegation that you see before you today, and I'm going to talk about each one of those. First of all, when we get a use of force complaint, that has gone through our chain of command. First, the sergeant will review it, the lieutenant will review it, the major will review it, and then it goes to the Officer Professional Standards, and they will review the case also. We also have a major that spot checks our use of force complaint to make sure that we're doing what we need to be done. On one of our complaints, we actually had a citizen come in, Mr. Thompson came in to report the use of force, and on the second complaint, I'm the complainant in that where it was reported to me and we looked at it. So again, I just want to make sure we tell our citizens out there and the residents that we will look at every use of force complaint and we will make sure we do it thoroughly, because it's very important that we don't let this case interfere with the way that not only our police department but our community has worked a long way to build a relationship. So I'll talk about the first case that we need to talk about. So the first case is Officer Kirsch. On that case, Mr. Thompson came into the police department to report a use of force. Command staff reviewed the incident, and what we saw in the incident was Officer Kirsch delivered 3 distractive blows to the suspect, Mr. Thompson. Now, the officers are trained in the academy that they can give distractionary blows. And what is a distractionary blow? A distractionary blow is you're hitting someone on their body to distract them from doing something that you think they may cause harm to the officer. So Officer Kirsch delivered those distractionary blows to the suspect. What we've taught officers once they come out of the academy, that distractionary blows are the last thing that you will do. You will try to use other tactics. And again, we get the luxury and you get the luxury of looking at this tape, slowing it down, second guessing what the officer has done. But at the time, the officer felt that that was the best thing for him to do at the time, to deliver those three distractionary blows. Command staff, after reviewing that, said no, what the officer should have done is use something else. With that being said, that officer was given a notice to appear, and he will be trained in the use of force at our department. Now, as we looked at that, we saw that that might be an issue for the police department as a whole. So I have instructed my staff, as of today, everyone in this police department, everyone, that's including me, will get self-defense tactic training again. So we'll know that using distractionary blows is one of the last option you shall use, unless, again, that you see intimate danger to you. In the second case we'll talk about is Officer Veerman. In that case, you saw on the tape where the suspect ran from the car. The officers called the gentleman out. Mr. Baker came out. He had his hands up in the air. Officer Veerman saw a knife on the Mr. Baker. Officer Veerman then deployed his taser. Again, command staff looked at that, and we said he had other options to use. Officer Veerman received 80 hours of suspension, and he will also receive defensive tactic training on other things that he can do. The other officer that was involved in this, Marinville, that officer, our policy says that if you witness an officer use of force, you shall report that to a supervisor. Because he did not report to a supervisor right away, he received a notice to appear. So we want to make sure, whether you're involved in it or not, if you see an officer using force, you shall report that to a supervisor. So with that, I'll open it up to you for questions.
Chief, just your response in having to deal with this. I know you have to deal with these kinds of disciplinary measures from time to time, but it's got to be just upsetting for you to have to come out and force you to talk about this situation. Just give us your thoughts on having to do that.
It is, because we as a police department, as a community, we've done a lot to bridge the gap to form this. And when something like this happens, it really affects the whole police department, because everybody's just going to focus on this one event, not everything that we've done together. So we have to look at this as a department and say, what did we do wrong? What did we do right? Let's correct this. And as the police chief, it's my job to look at that, because when we make a mistake, I have to ask myself, what could we have done differently, and asked my staff that. And what we saw was a training issue. And we're going to address that training issue, not only within our police department, but we're going to also address that issue with our community. We're going to teach our community that this shouldn't have happened and it shouldn't happen again.
Chief, this was caught on a home surveillance camera as well as the helicopter camera. We've talked before about body cameras. Does this change your opinion on that? I mean, is this something that maybe should be incorporated? Because although these two incidents were caught on camera, this could happen in other times and it's just not reported.
This has not changed my opinion on body cameras. As I said once before, I support body cameras. I just want to make sure that we find the right tool for the body cameras. So again, we're talking about storage and things like that. We are looking hopefully by the end of August to test one more body cam product. And from there, I'm going to make my recommendation to the mayor. Again, I'm not against body cameras. I think there's a certain use for body cameras, and I want to see that being used so we can continue to build our trust in our community.
What is the type that you will test out next?
The type that we're looking at is called a trigger mechanism, not saying a trigger. So the thing is when the officer pulls his gun, pulls his taser, it automatically goes back to starting to record what happened. We're probably looking at either a minute to 2 minute pre-roll, which is say, so if you and I are having this conversation, if I was to pull my weapon, it would go back a minute to show exactly what happened. The technology out there is getting better and better. So when that officer, when he or she pulls that weapon, it not only starts to record, but then it sends an alert to a supervisor and to the nearest backup unit saying that officer just pulled his weapon. So we don't have to worry about that officer not reporting what happened because that sergeant is aware of what's going on in the field.
Chief, can I ask you about the first incident involving the deputy and your officer? If you watch that video, it almost seems to me, as an outsider, the deputy was using excessive force too. He was punching the suspect. And then the sheriff's office sent their review, and they said they ruled it was unsubstantiated of his use of excessive force. What is the difference between what the deputy did and what your officer did, and why was your officer determined that he was wrong, and they said that their officer was not?
Well, that's something you have to ask the Sheriff Gualtieri about, and again, that's come down to a policy. Our policy is that, again, distractionary blows, that should be down the continuum. Should the officer have used a pressure point? What else could the officer have done for that? He did hit the, as you saw, hit Mr. Thompson on the side, and that's legal. The officer could do that. If I had my baton, I could strike you there. But my question to the officer was, could you have done something else? I'm not going to second guess what Sheriff Gualtieri's done, just like Sheriff Gualtieri's not going to guess why we did what we done. You looked at the tape, I looked at the tape. People see different things. So I'm only going to worry about addressing what my officer did and addressing what policy that I perceive my officer violated.
Chief, you talked about the training and the retraining of everyone. So you're saying every officer, yourself included, is going to be retraining in this defensive training time?
Yeah, every officer is going to be retrained in defensive tactics. Right now at the academy, they teach distractionary blows. They teach the officer that that's what they should use. We're saying keep that in your back pocket, so to speak, but we're going to teach you some other things. We're going to first of all teach you how to de-escalate, talk to someone. Then is there a safe way for me to grab your arm, take you down to the ground? There's pressure points that we use. We're going to try to go through all those matrix first, and that, again, that should be in your toolbox, but that should be way in the back of your toolbox.
So Chief, regarding the April 5th incident, when you look at the video, what you see is that the officer just punches him 3 times. And I know you're calling it a discretionary blow, but that's kind of what it just looks like in the video. And he had said, the suspect had said that he wasn't pulling away, he wasn't doing anything, and in your report you said that it didn't appear that the suspect was pulling away. Well, in the police report, the officer said that the suspect was pulling away. Are you at all concerned about, like, the officer not telling what you now believe to be the truth on that police report, and does that call into question other investigations that he's been involved in?
Well, again, I wasn't there and I looked at the videotape that you looked at, so I don't know if the suspect was pulling away at the time. I just can see the St. Pete officer. I saw him. If you go back and look at the tape, you see the St. Pete officer ask the suspect to go down to the ground. He does that. The St. Pete officer then holsters his weapon, and like he said in his report, When he looked up again, he saw the deputy and the suspect in a struggle. He then gave 3 blows because he saw the suspect reaching for something or putting his hand underneath him, and he was trying to get that hand from back. If you look at the report, why Officer Kirsch did what he did, a week prior to that, he stopped the suspect, same incident, and he found a gun in the guy's waistband, and he delivered 3 distractionary blows. So when you say that, that's what that officer has been trained in, but we're just trying to say, let's slow it down a little bit. Again, you and I get a chance to second guess what happened because we weren't there, but that's what the officer, his reaction was. The St. Pete officer delivered 3 blows to the left side of the body to get the arm out. And again, as you say, with the guy pulling away, I don't know, I can't tell from that videotape. All I can tell is what I saw my officer do.
So you're not concerned about any issues with the officer being honest at all?
No, I'm not. And like I said, our process, anytime in our process, and I don't know the other police department process, anytime one of St. Police officers, we use force, whether I touch you, grab you, we have to write a report. That report has to be documented. And in that report, if you get 10 incidents in 6 months, then it comes directly to my office and we review every case that you've done. So we've got things in place. Are there going to be mistakes? Yes, there are going to be mistakes in there. But that's why we have so many people reviewing the use of force. Again, if I were just to grab you by your arm right now and push you up against the wall, I have to document that I grab you. And if an officer there witnessed that and he didn't report it, he or she's going to get written up too. So again, the system is not perfect, but there's a system in place to make sure that our citizens that live here in St. Pete know that when we use force here in St. Pete, that we're going to document it and we're going to investigate it, because we as an agency, I will not tolerate that, and the men and women that work here, we're not going to tolerate that either.
And my other question was, when did the investigation into the April 5th incident conclude, and when did the investigation into the May 6th incident conclude?
They all concluded last week because everybody was interviewed, and then it came to command staff. Command staff is myself and the 3 assistant chiefs. We get a chance to do what you did. We look at the tape, we read the reports, we read all the statements, we let the officers give a statement, and then we come up with our findings, what we've seen.
So the findings for that, because I know that immediately on scene that night on the April 5th incident, the brother of the suspect had asked, for a review, but you're saying the investigation into the April 5th incident did not conclude until last week?
Did not include until last week because the brother, I spoke to the brother. He came here and I told him that we were going to open up an investigation. And once that investigation is open, then everybody has to be interviewed. Once everyone's interviewed, then the officer that's being charged with the allegation, then he gets to go through all the reports with his lawyer, and then the officer can give a statement to Office of Professional Standards. Then after that's done, that report is then forwarded to my office, and then I review the reports, and the assistant chief review the report. Then I call for a command review.
Chief, when will the training begin? When will the training begin on that?
The training has already begun. We've actually started with every new officer that's been hired. We started that 3 years ago with all our new officers that came through the academy. Now I'm saying, not just the new officers, we're going back. If you wear a badge in this department, everyone's going to go through that training.
And when will that retrain?
That will start, we started last week with the new officers, so I think I'm scheduled next month. I'm not sure, but I'll be in that room.
And my final question, Officer Viaman, regarding the May 6th incident, so he has not served his 2-week suspension yet?
He started suspension last week. Right at the command review board, he started his 80-hour suspension.
So it was right last week when the findings were concluded?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a bit of a hypothetical, but how would you handle the same April 5th case if there was no video? Because then it's just like one word versus the other word. And how do you determine in that case, when you can't go back and look at what happened, how do you determine who's lying and who's not?
The same thing. So when Mr. Thompson came in and filed a report, we will review it. We'll go through everything. We'll get his statements. We'll get the officer's statement. Command staff will review it and see exactly what happened. If you think about it, that officer, Officer Kirsch, didn't know there was a tape there. The night he wrote the report, he wrote exactly what happened that night. So whether that camera's there or not, he said, I delivered 3 distractionary blows. He didn't even know there was a camera there. He could have lied. But guess what? In his report that night, he wrote exactly what happened. So we went back and looked at that tape. Guess what? What he wrote in his report that night, 3 days later, what we found on that tape was the same thing that he written. So who am I going to believe? I would believe that also because he didn't know it was being videotaped, but guess what? He told the truth that night.
And I know you said you don't want to, step on the sheriff's toes. He's not going to step on your toes. I also wonder though if you would like to see more either cross training or other people going through the same thing. Because part of me wonders if you're more likely to throw a discretionary blow after you see another officer, maybe not officer, a deputy in this case, throw a punch too. If that sort of like mental, you see one punch, then you throw one yourself, that maybe you wouldn't have done had he not thrown a first punch, if that makes sense.
And I agree with you totally. Here in Pinellas County, we have something that's very unique. We have a standards meeting, and that's with the sheriff, the police chief, and the state attorney. I'm going to bring that up at our next meeting. You're right. As a group, maybe we need to talk about that. If we're saying the academy is teaching discretionary blows, but we don't think that should meet on the matrix, then we should talk about that. Where should that be? Because, again, as a group, we're all law enforcement. We should all probably be working from the same sheet of music.
The other big concern with that first incident was, and you had mentioned this, that the family members had come forward, tried to report it a couple times to the supervisors there on the scene. Are you going to retrain the officers in any way to take every complaint of this seriously and make sure that it's addressed then and there so he didn't have to come into the police department to do it?
Yes, and that issue was addressed. If you come into this police department and you say, I want to file a complaint, that complaint is taken and it will go up the chain of command. It's not, well, come back tomorrow. That complaint, if you say, I want to file a complaint, and there was some miscommunication because first time, can I see a supervisor? But once they came in and said, I want to file a complaint, that complaint was written down and it was forwarded up through the chain of command.
What's the likelihood any of these officers could face criminal charges?
They won't face any criminal charges.
So to clarify, do you think anything went wrong with the April 5th case in the way that this was reported and that it was dealt with, or do you think that everything went according to protocol regarding the allegation that the police was inefficient in addressing?
Well, according to the allegations, when Mr. Thompson's brother came into the police department and he went to talk to a supervisor, I'll say that was part one, that miscommunication. We should have listened to what he said, I want to file a complaint. The next day when he came in, he did say that keyword, I want to file a complaint against the use of force, and we took it that point. We're going to train our supervisors to say, is a person, just ask a simple question. Do you want to file a complaint? Don't try to figure out, are they complaining, are they not complaining? You just ask the word. Do you want to file a complaint, sir, ma'am? Do you want? And if they say yes, then we have that process in place that complaint will be taken. From there, everything was done correctly. Once Mr. Thompson said he wanted to file a complaint, that was delivered to the Office of Professional Standards. Office of Professional Standards contacted me, and I said, go ahead and move forward with the case. Everybody was interviewed. All the evidence was looked at, and command staff made their decision on what went wrong. And again, like I said earlier, what we saw the biggest issue was training. And if anyone's going to be blamed for training, then that's going to come down to me, the police chief, because I am responsible for training this department. If we got a training problem, we need to address that.
So Chief, final question regarding that April 5th incident. I'm just trying to understand, when you look at the guy, he gets on the ground, he's looking up, he seems like he's being very obedient and listening to everything police and deputies say. I just don't understand why anyone would ever punch him.
Okay, and if you read the deputy's report, the deputy said as he reached for him, he pulled up. That's something you're going to have to ask again, what would that deputy in his report. I can tell you again, I'm not going to second guess. That's what the deputy said that happened. My officer said that when he looked up again, he saw the struggle and he delivered those 3 blows.
But your report says it didn't appear that the guy pulled away.
I didn't write a report, so when you're saying that.
Said- The video does not appear to show the suspect pull away from Officer Kirsch in any manner. That's the report from your office.
I'm sorry, I would have to take a look at what you're talking about.
No problem.
If you want to talk offline, I'll be more than happy. Okay, thank you.
Can you just talk about trust? I mean, obviously, for every one bad act, you've got a bunch of officers doing amazing things in this community. But can you talk a little bit about the trust that you guys have worked to build and how an incident like this, you can build upon it, like you said, with more training?
Yeah, so at this police department, in this community, we've done a lot to bridge those gaps and build trust. This one incident, is it gonna set us back? Yeah, we know that. So we've gotta go back out there and start building. We gotta talk about how we're gonna train our people, how we can make sure this doesn't happen again. We gotta go out and train our community, bring them in. I challenge anybody in this room, if you wanna come to our defensive tactics training and we put you in one of those scenarios, let's see how you're gonna react and make that split-second decision. Because you're gonna act totally different than the way you're trained. So, and that's what we wanna show the citizen. Just like this report over here was asking that the person said he pulled away. From a video, I can't tell you if he's pulling away or not. All I can tell you is what I saw or what I see on the video. I see officers delivering blows. I have to go by then what those officers are saying, what he felt or what he felt at the time it happened. So we're gonna get out. I've talked to some of the ministers. I gotta get out and talk to more community, not just me, officers, because this one act is not all 562 of us. It was 2 officers out of 562. It was a training issue. Like I said, if you want to look at anyone, I have to look at myself first because it's a training issue. And how do we make that better? And how do we make that relationship better and communicate better on how we're training our officers?